Hello and welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome and welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness in the highest levels of love light. I am recording in my office a lot lately because I'm trying to do videos that are a little longer, although most people probably only watch them for about 5 minutes. I do have some beautiful light workers who actually watch most of the video. So this particular video is going to be a recap of a blog that I recently posted. So it will not be light language. So if you feel inspired to just listen or feel into some light language videos, I invite you to go back and you can watch the previous one that I posted, which is the beginning of the June solstice, the 18th. So this video, I write a lot of codes, literally. And the way that I write, from what I have been told by my higher guides, is it's a living light language codex, as we all have access to. But the style in which I write pulls together certain realities, and it also is a divinator of sorts. So sometimes it will talk about the future. Sometimes it will be tying together different parallel timelines. And in doing this, I integrate certain aspects of our reality that I happen to be tapping into through my root system. And what I've been guided to do is to share this, not just share what I write, but how I write it, because there are others out there that are doing this as well. And perhaps this will inspire others to utilize the living light language codex that we all are accessing in such a way that it changes the shape of the language and the linguistical play on words that we are harnessing. And I could go into so many different angles from there. When I talk about angles, it is a reference to, I invite you guys to look up language on Dan Winter website, fractalfield.com. He talks about language and shows, for example, I believe it's the Hebrew language or Sanskrit language letters. He puts them on a toroidal spin and shows the shape and the spin of the letters. And that isn't what this video is intended to go into. Maybe I will talk about that later as to how I see that. But essentially the words and letters that we use and the combinations that we put these letters and words into do cast a spell. So part of what we do as light workers is to break the spell that has been cast upon us, so to speak, which we are already doing. We have already done that. But then we change the actual geometry associated with the patterns of the words and linguistics that we are using in order to repattern and harness the higher frequencies that we have the accessibility to tap into. Or we change the accessibility of the language in such a way that we are then able to tap into the layers or geometries of word coding, if that made sense. And there's more. I was just in flow as I was saying that. I'm going to read what I wrote in my blog on June 17th, and you can go to carryyvonne.com if for some crazy reason you want to nerd out and read along with me, which I would recommend just if you haven't seen what I've written before, so you can see it in vision. Some people are more visual. Some people are more auditory, right? Just like some people are more clairvoyant and then some people are more clairaudient. So it just depends on you. But I'm going to read what I wrote, then I'm going to go back in and break it down in order to expand it out to show what it is that I'm tapping into and why it sounds so funny when I write it the way that I write it. Okay, so I'm going to go into this a little bit. There's certain words, whenever I have written POW, it means play on words. So oftentimes I'll say play on words to remind me to go back and play with the word or to share that it is a play on words. I will say oftentimes so to speak, or the other word that I use a lot is if you will. So to speak, oftentimes means that's just one version. So that's one reality, or that's one perspective. Or it can also mean, so to speak, basically I'm speaking this into a particular version or perspective. If you will also has multiple meanings. So it's like thine will be done. So if you will this into being, or perhaps, if you will, if you will, if it's something that you want to play with, if you will. So I just wanted to share a couple of those common words that I use, and they take on different meanings at different times. So what this particular blog post is called Plucking the Chords. And I'm not going to share screen. I just feel like that's almost more distracting, or maybe it isn't. I don't know. Maybe you guys can give me some feedback and let me know if you want me to share the screen if I do this again. So it's called Plucking the Chords, Alpha Beta Soup, Letter Geometry. I posted this on June 17th. And on the blog, carrieavon.com, it has a picture of the clouds. Let us flow into outer space for a moment. Let us flow into the space that is outside of you, yet permeates all that is within you. For all is connected through a sheath-like fabric of prismatic wavy lines, particles, and dots. We wish to meld into this fabric, if you will, so that you can feed into the frequency that is all around you and all that it is offering, all that is around you, all that is around you, round and round and round. As we set within this circumferentry, if you will, play on words, connected through roots, circumference tree and circumferential, circumferentor. As we allow all that, as we allow out that which has been reflected from within, we then let go of the need to hold on to, in tow, into, on to. We move on to, into. We let go of the need to bind ourselves to certain principalities, principles, if you will, certain principles and doctrines, bandwagons, and bandwidths that are no longer established in the new framework that we exist within. For as these old principles, Prince IP realities, old friends, so to speak, begin to fall to the wayside. We begin to recognize that we are on the other side of that way. We weave on the other side. One may say we are on the other side of the coin. Yet there is one universal truth that we are all subject to, if you will. This is a play on words. Subject has been utilized for many different terminologies, sentences. Many of us feel we have been sentenced to subjectivity, or to be subjects, to be subjected to be subjugated, would be a role that many have agreed to play. Yet this role is outplayed in this now moment. For others are finally stepping up to the truth from within, stepping up to their truth from within, allowing their truth to shine from within. And in doing this, that which is reflected outwardly begins to change pixels, if you will, picks and chooses different cells, begins to morph with the cones, the diagonals, the wavy lines, and all that appears before your very eyes. Morphs, metamorphosis, meta, more, faux sizes, bigger, tons, more, turns on the photons, Fun grows in value, changes the size, changes the scope, turns on a dime, if you will, changes the scope of awareness in the field. Feel it. And all this recognition or relevance within the spectrum allows the field to interact, to react, re-I, in the act, that which is being expressed from the inside out. So we will see playing in front of our very eyes the movie that we have been from, the movie that we have been playing from within. And this is not to say that each individual is playing the same movie that they see playing outside of them on the dialogue box, if you will. Radio, TV, any other type of artificial institutions, insinuations, simulations that we have birthed, knowingly or unknowingly, it is done. Yet we are being invited to recognize the structure which we are birthing, structures that we have birthed. Many have outgrown their potentials, and so we send them off into a different direction, so to speak, so they may play out. I am seeing some will dissolve, as in they just won't play out, and others will go into hibernation. I have seen a void space where all these thoughts had been collected and they had been kept under lock and key. They were kept under divine lock and key so that they did not have the potential of being released until man, woman, and child could see, play on words, the error of their ways. Play on words. I see error 404 not found, like you see on a computer. Like there were certain thoughts that were not able to be expressed because the vibrational encoding did not match. Pull and frequency, which we were birthing, did not hold space for those expansive thoughts. And so they were kept under safety, if you will. Safe key, ping, safe keeping, safe coding. And many have accessed this potentiality again. For these are yours from within. These thoughts are combinations of expectations and frequencies that gave birth to entire civilizations. And they have been percolating, if you will. Masquerading is no longer part of this equation, play on words. I am seeing that these thoughts and thoughts of realities were hidden in this void space and encapsulated, not able to gain full creation, manifestation, or birth so that they can be accessed and quarried at a different time. And we are in that space now, brothers and sisters. For as we allow ourselves to expand and break on through to the other side, break through this void space equivalent, we allow ourselves to create that which is equal to our value, our thoughts, our interactions with Source infinitely, intimately. This allows us to calibrate and create an equilibrium. I am seeing Harry Potter, and when he pulls through or memories and looks into the scrying bowl of water, and I'm hearing they are plucked. And as we pluck, pull these through from void space, they stick when we have enough holding patterns to attract them to us. I am seeing outside of us, but inside of us, we created them. But when they come back to us, and then we add to them, and this gives a whole new picture to thoughts become things. For they are a thing, if you will, floating in the ethers, the air, the others, the hairs, the airs, outside of time, so to speak. The decisive units of co-creation, matter formation. It's mirror on the wall, merely a matter of thought perspective. You could go with this, You could go with that. It's a dance, if you will. And the most expansive thoughts often come with the most responsibility, the ability to respond to the enormity of the energy behind the productivity. Remember to play with your words, for as you allow them to form in your mind's eye, you bring into your awareness all that you hold within your mind's eye. And so these subjects require a certain amount of objectivity when discussing them. Objectivity around these subjects is key. Many of the words that we are using are meant to be played with, for as you use these linguistics, these languages, as you play with the vocabulary, you open up to an entirely new subset for reference points, an entirely new subset of dominions, if you will, an entirely new subset of frequencies and activations, then spill forward or spill forth from your interpretation of these words. For the entanglement in which the English language has experienced also is in a place of revamping, if you will. And I was seeing, I can go with this or I can go with that. The life has been sucked out of it, the language, and that is being played out in this false sense of security. Play on words. Triple layer dimension. Instead of thinking of it as 3D, I am seeing certain languages or words as being trapped in that dimension because they were only used for lower dimensional structure representations. Yet we choose not to go into that particular scope field in this conversation. For that mapping field is in self-destruction, if you will. Yet this is also a play on words. It is in the process of self-destructing the sense of self, in the ego of linear projection, if you will. So we choose to map into this higher quality of resonance, a higher quality of sound harmonics. And as you allow this structure to unfold within this linguistically play on words, linguistical play on words, play, it creates an activation set of quantum mechanics, the mechanisms, the mechanics, the mechanical voice oscillations that you provide through your linguistic playfulness allows you to share and play with these subsets of energy frequency. I am literally seeing the alpha, beta, alphabet stringing together like lights, string theory, a string of A to Z. Flick them, scrabble them, and they fall apart. And then I am piecing them back together. I am hearing upside down and inside out, upside down. And this allows you to play with this structure in such a way that it activates a deeper depository, play on words. I think of a depository as a value, a bank, a holding space to put into, to place into something, to hold on to in order to add value to, and to organize, to draw from when needed. So we allow these currencies to flow through us. We then reactivate lost potentials that were once ensnared from one perspective in a lower energy soup, yet were also put on hold or held with the deepest resonance, regard, reverence. From one end or that end, these words were taken and reworked in 3D architecture. Read 3, that's all you get. But then I am seeing the void space, and essentially all was held in this space until those of us that are holding a higher resonance intervals of resonance. I'm hearing residency, residence key. In a non-ego way, egoic way, can then tap back into these thoughts or patterns that are now on display on the marquee. Like we can see them and they are available to us if we use the right key. So we allow you, or you allow we, from many different angles to tap into these letter geometries. These letter geometries coerce a deeper path, a course, when you go back and forth between each other, a concourse for discourse. And it allows you to interchange in a fluid-like state and space in order to access these divine fine points of intersecting nodes, notes. These divine nodes and geometries then spill forth into your letter. That's a play on words. A vocabulary sequencing. I recognize this can be going into DNA, fire letters, and can go into the world of crypto, artificial intelligence, computer programming, all forms of language in formation. For there are many different subsets in which we exchange these particles of information and weave them together so that you may find a deeper definition, play on words, within these subsets of quandaries and mathematications. Quantification, mathematics, pontification, mathematication, word and letter information mixologist. And in doing this, we rectify many things that have been lost in the soup, if you will. We pull them out as shiny and new now, for they have not been accessed in this way. They are purified, if you will. They are the pure frequencies of vocabulary, of sound, of mathematics, that which has yet to be falsified. And so we will continue to play with this linguistical display of mathematical encodement. For as you share the messages in this way, others may not understand fully what is on display. Yet you are a marquee carrier. This isn't just about me, guys. This is also about you guys, because you're also marquees. I am seeing this marquee that lights up certain words. You can take the letters and put them on the board. Let us play with this. The marquee light, so to speak, has been turned off for many. And many are using old and recycle ink, recycling old nodes. And these old notes and nodes have lost their charm. They have lost their ability to hold the spell, if you will, which is a gift to the new energies coming in, giving them the opportunity to anchor into the landmines, grounded realities, anchor points, landing in the mind. And you and all that you speak in this way are providing. For this is a fluidity. I'm hearing fluocular. I'm seeing fluocular, vocabulary and inoculation, play on words. It allows you to play with currency. It allows you to play with currency in such a way that you can divinate that which is concurrently binding itself in the reality activation grid. But let us play more with these words and this vocabulary. For the words and subsets that you are linguistically tapping into, taproot, allows you to coin. Quaint, count essentially. Quint essentially, mint essentially. Peel back the layers of geometric interfaces that interlace and phase lock, commingling into the subdivision of quantum intuition. Yet these our limiting view of what you are really viewing. You can attribute this to, I am hearing a tributary, Atreyu, a tree. We can attribute this to your galactic, so to speak, leveling up, if you will, your galactic interface and exchange. I was hearing crows in the background, so I typed up the crow's nest and the crows were speaking. As you allow yourself to commingle in this network, you exchange viable information that allows you to create waves, weave certain reference points into your understanding, into your nature, into your understanding of nature. For we are weaving codes in every given moment, so to speak. We are weaving codes during every interaction in which you allow these codependent, singular node networks then light up the refractory board, olfactory. This light up creates the ability to move out of division and into revision, re-envisioning the scope of what it is that you are creating. I am seeing a flag and thinking of what a flag really represents. I am seeing red, white, and blue, and I'm hearing united in division, so to speak. For the division is a false flag, which takes me into a different spin. Yes and no. The geometries that you are speaking, I'm going to say at this point, I was thinking it was taking me into a different spin, and the answer was yes, it is, but no, it isn't. The geometries that you are speaking allows you to map into these different sequencing sets, sequential sets, quintessential sets, quintuplets, frequency sets, seeing into the frequencies. So from one perspective, we will go into what is playing out on the web, so to speak. For the web is the feedback system to tell you what is being accessed on the inside of being in excess in axis. And so this certain flow and trajectory allows you to set up, ring true, set up a ringer. For these words allow you to break the spell and allows you to spell the break, if you will. Point break, Brody. LOL. And so as you allow yourself to quell, caw, crow, calm, all doubts and fears based around these important frequency pattern networks that you are creating, recognizing, remembering, we then set a new chord, if you will. I am seeing back to the letter string, like the letters being chorded on a guitar. And it basically adds strength and string. So more strings added to an old guitar. It changes the whole scope of the way the information is accessed, the way it sounds, the harmony, the frequency, and the order of things. It adds a higher order, like a different or added dimension. So these sublets, I'm not sure if that's sublets and I'm going to put subsets too. And harmonics, everyone is capable of accessing if they choose to. Yet there are those of you that have chosen to speak your voice in such a communicable way that it allows for those who are seeking community, communion, with the oneness of source self codes, source self, codes that are sourced from the self, a deeper sense of self, ego self versus higher self. So as we share these unwinding principles with all selves, if you will, all selves on deck, there becomes a deeper semblance of freedom, resemblance, deeper symbolism, deeper re-cell balance. So let us light up the board, if you will. Let us light up the grid. Let us line up wavy lines and lights. Let us regurgitate that which is still usable And that which was under subjugate, that which is non-usable, we can then explode and move into implode. This allows us to break down the principles that have been built up on fluff, so to speak, and allows us to continue use the intuition nutrition, recognizing that all the layers and subsets in which you linguistically tap into allows you to pull it from source, pulling it out of the maple tree like maple syrup, and then break it down for efficiency, energy, a higher efficiency. So I am seeing that even in this word soup, it is actually creating a certain amount of efficiency because a lot of the stagnation in the holding patterns of the words and letters is now being broken up. And we are seeing how fluid the living light language can be and become. It has been this already, and we are remembering. And we are weaving it with all intelligences from doing it from the heart, creating a new code, like a new code of honor, a new code of life. So that's it. Like we needed more. Okay. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for tuning in to this. I'm going to go back and I'm going to break it down in sections. I may not have enough time in this one video to break it all down. I added some things in the blog. For example, I looked up the word circumferenter. I looked up the word cryptomeria, which was actually the hair tree. And I want to share, when I write these things, one of the things that I notice is that it really is, a living light code. So it changes and it grows as I go back and read it again. It it adds to it. As I was writing this, I was recording it as I was walking, and there happened to be crows, which I'm uploading this into an Anchor. Anchor is a blog, right? No, podcast. I haven't really set it up yet. It's there. I'm adding to it as soon as I get that set up. But so I'm uploading all of this into Anchor. So if you just want to listen to it, if you feel inspired to listen, I have this ring light on. I'm gonna pause this and turn it off. No, I'm not, because it's actually pretty dark in here. So I'm gonna go back. Now, most of this is talking about the living light language. I was guided to share it in such a way because I'm literally pulling from my environment as I think, see, feel, hear these words. It's not coming from one particular situation, story, or place. And so that's the one thing I wanted to share. I'm utilizing everything in my environment because everything is speaking with us to us through this grid. So there was a show we watched the other night, and it just was like, okay, somebody kicks a ball, the ball goes out into the street, the dog chases the ball, the car almost hits the dog, and then instead the car gets into a little fender bender. Then the people that are involved in the fender bender, it changes their whole life. And it's just showing how everything is so interconnected. Everything is synchronistic. So when I go back and say, let us flow into outer space for a moment, let us flow into the space that is outside of you, yet permeates all that is within you. For all is connected through a sheath-like fabric of prismatic wavy lines, particles, and dots. I see that as not only our reality. Oftentimes, if I'm going through an activation or an upgrade and my eyes are closed, or if I'm getting acupuncture or going into the astral, I will see wavy lines. I'll see dots. I will see a fingerprint, the biofield. And if you look at some of the ancient drawings of our ancestors in the indigenous tribes, that's drawn all over the walls of caves. It's drawn in Mexico, and I believe that it's drawn on the wall art of the Aborigines. I could go on and on. And from my perspective, it represents different portals, realms, wormholes, vibrations, light. It is communication. So from what I was seeing is that this is then put through a prismatic of colors and our prism. So our perspective is also a prism, right? And everything is connected, inner to outer, outer to inner. That's pretty self-explanatory. We wish to meld into this fabric, if you will, so that you can feel and feed into the frequency that is all around you. We're not just responding to it, it responds to us. And all that it is offering. And as I wrote this, I recognized it's off her ring. So if you look up Dan Winter, if you think of Alice in Wonderland, the caterpillar is blowing smoke rings, asking, who am I? Those rings around the rose, ring around the rosy. They're rings of creation. They're from what I'm, and look up Dan Winter, he does such a better job of explaining it. But essentially what I see them as is, of course, I've got the ring light, so I'm thinking the light rings. It's the long wave, it's implosion, right? It's coherence, 0 point, if you will, slip knot. All that is around you. So when I wrote around you, I went back in and I was guided to write the letter A. And if you think of a circle around the A, it's an at sign. Like my Instagram is at keep it simple starseeds. Well, what does that mean? That is also, this is computer lingo. It also has to do with computer, and the artificial is also now connected to the organic, because we are the bridge between the two from one perspective. So if you're using a computer, you are working with an artificial network. We all work with computers for the most part, right? So if you look that up, so obviously you use the at sign to go to a particular domain. So just that in alone in this writing is so multifaceted, because are we talking about a domain on a computer, or are we talking about a domain in versions of realities or places during different times, past, present, future? A different domain could be a different planet. So there's so many different words and layers that we could tap into. But I thought it was really fun to look up, what does it really mean? And there's a website called gizmodo.com, and they call this, the Italians call it snail, which I think is symbolic. The Slavs call it monkey. The Spaniards arroba, which is also symbolic, right? But it's talking about, at the time, it was also used for commercial volume measure. So it's basically directing you, it's the price of, so it's a value too. So it's multifaceted and multidimensional, even just using the at sign. It's a mathematical system of symbology, and so is our language. So when I write here, we wish to meld into the fabric as we set within this circumferentry. I'm going to share screen here. So I just shared screen. I'm not used to doing this exactly, but I'm under here where it says of prismatic. So prismatic wavy lines. So it's all that is around you. The sound around you, right? Air round, round and round and round. The rings. It's a constant, it's infinity. And that circle is basically setting up different domains. It's creating you're going to something. That's your home base. That's the value system. As we set within the circumferentry, if you will, the circumferenter. Now, I didn't realize that that was an actual thing. So I'm sharing the screen, and circumferenter, I'm on Wikipedia. Huh, that's interesting. So I essentially wrote, as we set within this, if you will, and we're talking about at a value system, we're talking about a domain, right? Connected through roots. As we allow that out, that which has been reflected from within, we let go. Okay, so I'm going to go into that. Let's go into circumference. So if you look at this, it's a surveyor's compass. We're looking around, seeing all the different directions. The needle, a pair of sights, is located on the north-south axis of the compass. It's talking about measuring angles. My friend Candace did a video the other day and I couldn't stop thinking about, she kept saying view, view, and I was seeing a V, a vector, right? Here's that space, angle. And I find this ironic, EKG, that's the heart, right? Our EKG, such as an angle. It's got the degrees, it's got the needle point, you're surveying a region, right? This is what we are essentially doing. And it's talking about moving out from the center. And here's the prism. Here we go. I mentioned earlier the prism. It talks about a double prism is a device to measure right angles. I'm talking in here about two 5-sided prisms stacked on top of each other. I don't know what about a plumb bob is, but that sounds kind of fun. Oh, it's a weight, a plumb line. Oh, center, plumb line. We talk about that in Pilates and yoga. So this is so symbolic. And I love to use this and share this because it's visual tools. So you are set within this, that center. Let me pause this. Sorry, guys. I'm learning how to use this, right? So I'm just going to hit share screen again. So we let go of the need to hold on to in tow. So what are we towing behind us? What are we taking with us? How much luggage and baggage do we need to take with us? And we let go of the need to split, right? We don't have to be bifurcated. We don't have to be in polarization. We get back into a center of the eye of the needle, right? We let go of the need to bind ourselves to certain principalities, principles, if you will. Now, principalities also has to do with a lot of people, what they believe on creation, certain deities that we have given power to is what this also represents. We aren't bound to continue to support those realities anymore because they don't support us anymore. And then principles that we think, oh, okay, you know, that really aren't for our highest and greatest good. Certain principles and doctrines. And I wrote doctrines because it's essentially keeping us docked and we're following this train and it's training us to behave in a certain pattern, right? We're letting go of the need to dock into something. And everything I'm using, by the way, can be used interchangeably with computer speak. I did not know this until I started to look up computer language. So doctrines and bandwagons, like we're getting off the bandwagon and we're getting off of these bandwidths. We're not tuning into these lower frequencies when we find ourselves back in that center of the ring, the one ring to rule them all, that are no longer established. They're no longer held within the new framework that we exist within. For as these old principals, these old friends, so to speak, these Prince IP realities. So I wanted to just say, again, the A, the all, the domain. Well, I was guided to write Prince IP realities. So certain programs, certain places that we call our home base. We don't have to log in to those realities anymore. Now, I'm bringing this up because this also works, I came to find, having to do with our internet and our web system. From what I've been seeing is that's being revamped, literally. And I talked about this later in what I wrote. And I said I could go with this and I could go with that. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but what I wrote earlier, well, let me make sure I'm still recording. I am, is that it's being revamped. So there's that vampiric quality. That's that. Like it sucked the life out of what it was, the living light language. That is not, it's changing, right? And this also has to do with our monetary system. This also has to do with our electronic coin-based system. It's basically being reworked for a reason. And I have a feeling that'll be video number 2 because there's so much that I could go into about that. So this is living light codes. It's interchangeable with different domains. One domain is humanity and reality. One domain is 3D, 4D, 5D. Well, those are one domain, but those are also separate realities from several different perspectives. We could go with this, we could go with that. Depends on where we're looking at from our surveyor tool, right? Our compass. That's what I'm going to call that. So it also is a representation of many different layers of those or subsets of those domains. Okay, back to share screen. So we let go of the need to hold on to that stuff and bind ourselves to what we think we needed to bind ourselves to, because they're no longer established in this new framework. And I'm going to go deeper into the Prince IP realities. As it turns out, you can get an IP address that goes into a different place. I didn't know this, but I looked it up last night. And it'll say, if you log in and you say your IP address is actually in like a place called Prince in Haiti, I guess, Haitian, which is ironic because my friend Jess just brought up Creole Haitian 2 days ago. And then it just so happens I looked this up. It's a thing. You can reroute your IP address and it'll let you into different places than if your IP address comes from the United States. Didn't know that. So now you're saying you're from a different domain, which gives you access to other areas and potential realities that we didn't have access to because we were coming from a different domain before. And that's one of the other meanings of what this code is all about. Old friends, so to speak, begin to fall to the wayside. Now this goes back into humanity. Our old pals, our old buddies, people that we thought we connected with, right? Some of us are really finding it difficult to stay friends with some of these people because they don't hold the same value for us anymore. And I'm not saying that from a negative or hierarchical way. We're better than them. It just means you don't have anything in common. And the center, when we're in our center and somebody is way over on that side of reality, maybe they're just constantly negative, maybe they are completely materialistic, maybe they are just have no desire for any spiritual growth, they're just not necessarily holding the same values that we hold. It's okay to say goodbye. We're going different places. And that's a little bit of that split that we're seeing. Even though we're really one, I talked about this in my previous video, so sorry. I was talking about bridges. I kept seeing on my computer split in the bridges, which is so symbolic in many different ways too, because some of us are bridging, we're helping to bridge those individuals. Some of us most likely not watching this video, but some of us are those individuals. And some of us might be going, I really don't want to be materialistic anymore, but I'm not interested in that. So they go a different route. They go to a different IP address. They come from a different IP address, or they go to a different domain at such and such when we're over at such and such. So we begin to recognize that we are on the other side of that way. So they're there, and we've already gone through that. We've already gone, and we can choose to bridge them, or we can choose to move on, depending on what we want to do. We wave. We're on the other side saying, hey, we're over here. If you want to come on over, the bridge does come back to oneness, even though they're way over there, right? It's this false bifurcation. And guys, I'm sharing this from my perspective. Some people see this as a true bifurcation and we're splitting off into these other realms. And I'm just sharing what I see. And this is from my uh, compass. This is my alethiometer. This is the way I read the energies. Everybody's got their own unique individual coin. We begin to recognize that we're over here, and that's okay. It's okay. We don't have to force them to come with us, also, and we don't have to take them with us. I'm hearing begrudgingly. One may say we are on the other side of the coin, yet there is one universal truth that we are all subject to, if you will. And I could go into a whole video on what is that universal truth. When I say one universal truth, I just mean that we're all one. That's it. Ultimately, we come from the same place, or we come from the same original source domain from one particular perspective, right? That we are all subject to. Like that is where we are. So I will play with the word subject later in this, and we'll come back to coin. This is a play on words. Subject has been utilized for many different terminologies or sentences. So even that whole sentence can be taken into three different realms. Term means the end of something, right? It's coming up to term. Sentence means you're sentenced to. It's a punishment, right? Oftentimes. So that's that end of the spectrum. But the other end of this, or that we've been subjected to, we've been sentenced or punished to subjectivity, to be subjected to or subjugated. And what I'm being shown is that some have chosen to play that role, to be the victim, right? But many of us are saying, that's not anything. I am no longer subjugated to a sentence that some principality gave me that I accepted. I no longer accept that. I may have agreed to play it at one time, yet this role is outplayed. We've outplayed it. We've already been there, done that. Not only that, if you think of a chess game, we've already outplayed it. Like your move, it's not, we've already played it. It's already out. We've already won the chess game, but the other player doesn't necessarily know it yet, from one perspective of many. In this now moment, for others are finally stepping up to the truth from within. So that's even a play on words. They're stepping up to the truth. Like they're seeing it in front of them and they're stepping up to it. And then once they step up to it, they realize that the reason they even moved towards the truth is because something from within them was driving them towards walking up those steps. And then they allow their truth to shine. And shine is a play on words. Shine is that heart, it's the light, and it's also a reference to the shining, our gifts, our abilities, our potentials from within. And in doing this, shining, that which is reflected outwardly begins to change pixels, if you will. You guys probably know what pixels are, right? Pixels, you put them all together to create a picture. They're different frequencies and shapes and colors, right? They create the screen. They create the fabric. If you will, picks and chooses different cells, begins to morph with the cones. So our eyes change, our vision changes, what we see changes before our very eyes because we've changed it energetically. So it happens before we see it. Therefore, the change has already occurred, if that makes sense. And our cells in our bodies also change to match this form of communication. The diagonals, the wavy lines. So we go into a different reality. And all that appears before your very eyes. It shows up. It then is expressed from within. Morphs, metamorphosis, it changes. Metamorphosizes. So there's bigger value. It weighs, when I say bigger tons, it turns on the photons, and fun grows in value. So joy grows. We have fun within this as we grow our value. Our value. Guys, this also has to do with cryptocurrency. Sidebar, our value system, it has to do with our monetary system, not just crypto, but our monetary system. It changes. We start to see certain changes happening, and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And it turns on the photons, right? The light particles, changes the size, and it changes the scope. So if you look at a scope, right, you look through something to see it, but it changes how big it is. It changes what we're looking at. I'm still going to come back to turns on a dime, if you will, because this is something I haven't quite decoded quite. It means a lot. Okay, I'm being guided to work with this. Oops, I thought I hit pause. I guess I didn't. Okay, if you're still working with me, thank you. Pause recording. So I'm just gonna keep going. What I did was I was thinking and processing, because obviously it means having a small turning radius. It means being flexible and to change quickly. It means turn very quickly and with great agility. But I also was guided to look up what a dime is. And a dime represents value, right? 10. And I was guided to share that the 10 is changing into the 12 and the 13. Like it's morphed into something bigger than 10. This goes back to certain building principalities, if you know what I'm saying, if you know what I'm referring to. I guess I didn't. Oh, I was still sharing. Okay. I'll get this right one of these days. So, okay. So all that appears before our very eyes. So let me hit share screen. Changes the scope of awareness in the field. Feel it. And all this recognition or relevance within the spectrum. Okay, even that's a play on words. So relevance is how important it is within that spectrum. So certain things that we thought were important, I talked about this in my previous video. I got the message that we might be arriving at a different gate than we thought we were, or our connecting flight is now at a different gate. It's because it's all of this we're recognizing changes the scope of awareness in the field. Feel it. We feel this recognition, and it changes the relevance within the spectrum. So some things are no longer relevant for our growth. It allows the field, or we allow the field, this interaction to interact and to react. And I am the act that is being expressed from the inside out. So again, I talked about it's reacting to us and we're reacting to it because we're working together. So we will see playing in front of our very eyes. And by the way, even that's a play on words. We're going to see things playing. This is playing out over here and this is playing over there. We're going to see all these plays in front of our very eyes. But moving forward, we're going to see playing out in front of our very eyes the movie that we have been. So what we're seeing in front of us has already happened. It's the past. We're seeing, oh, this is what we were. We're no longer that. It's got a delay. And that we have been from. We can look back and say, oh, I'm coming from that. That was where I was. I came from that domain. The movie that we have been playing from within. So part of this has also been coming from us, right? Our fears, our anger, our frustration is part of that as well. Not all fear, anger, and frustration. I'm just using those as that we have been. And this is not to say that each individual is playing the same movie. So not everybody sees the same things, right? We're all using our different spectrometer. I don't remember what I called it, circumferentor. So some people are seeing different dialogues play out on the dialogue box because some people are watching different boxes, right? And this is radio. Anything that is simulating an experience or an expression, we have birthed it. Whether we know it or not, it's already done. The TV was already made, right? The radio was already created. We already did it. Whether we were part of it or not, we were still part of it. Yet we are being invited to recognize the structure which we are birthing, structures that we have birthed. So we're being invited to focus on what we are in this now moment, and then structures that we have birthed, seeing both of them from an objective perspective, right? And I could play with that in general too. And many have outgrown their potentials. So there was a potential for humanity, and there's a lot that have gone beyond what that potential might have been, because within a certain domain, somebody only has the ability or potential to access a certain amount of frequency, but now we're in a different domain. We're coming through a different gate. We're in a different place. So the potential has gone up and out. And so we send them off in a different direction, so to speak. So some people go in a different way. So they may play out. So this has to do with, again, our pals saying, all right, they've got to play that out. That's what they are choosing to play it out. And some of that will just naturally dissolve. Meaning it just won't happen. We won't even see it anymore. And others will go into hibernation. So they'll just shut down. I put here, I had seen a void space where all these thoughts had been collected and they had been kept under lock and key. They were kept under divine lock and key so that they did not have the potential of being released until man, woman, and child could see, play on words, the error of their ways. So I want to just break this down a little bit. Break it down again. Okay, so when I say that, this was what I saw in meditation. Is it literal? From what I saw, yes. Thoughts are things. When we have a thought, so from one perspective, when we are picking up on telepathy, part of what we're picking up on is a thought. Our thought isn't inside of us. It's out there. We are projecting it out into the air, so to speak. This is from one perspective. Somebody else might say, no, a thought is this. And they'll give their definition and they will be correct. This is my own version of what it is. So we think a thought, it goes out into the ethers, the others, the hairs, right? It goes out, it connects with the airs, HEIRS. We're able to connect into all of that. But what I was shown was there was a space, because we were in a certain domain, let's call it 3D, we couldn't access some of these thoughts because they were so far beyond what we had the potential of understanding, or so far beyond what we had the potential of I don't want to use the words not screwing up, but we weren't in that vibration that we could it would go to waste, is what I'm hearing. It wouldn't be utilized for our fullest potential. The nutrition we wouldn't have been able to gain the nutrition from it that it really held. And that thought could, let's say, I don't know, I was shown many different things, but I kind of want to stay in flow with this. So what happened was now we're accessing that because we've hit a certain plateau. We've hit a certain note frequency. So it's like all of a sudden, ding, 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 and open sesame, right? So now we're able to access that space and all these thoughts that we've thought up. And when I say heirs, thoughts our ancestors had, thoughts our future versions of us have had, are able to be accessed now. So think about technology, right? The future version of us has created some really awesome technology that we may not have been able to think about or have accessed because we wouldn't have known what to do with it from one perspective. Now, some of that's already happened, and that's why a lot of it was shut down, because the domain that we existed in the dominion of domination and control, did not allow us to fulfill or create those thoughts. And in addition to that, coming from that perspective, some of those were kept under lock and key so that the dominion of domination and control was unable to access them as well. So they wouldn't fall into the wrong hands from one perspective. And that's looking at it from that perspective. But from another perspective, they didn't stick because they couldn't stick. They would just kind of go off someplace else because we weren't holding a match set. We weren't holding the frequency in which, even if we did draw those thoughts back to us and we remembered, oh yeah, I can create something that would clean up the environment in one fell swoop. Wow. But we didn't have the tools to get there, or we weren't cohesive enough, is what I'm hearing. We weren't coherent enough. So if we're in a place of fear, and we have this amazing thought 2 seconds later, but we only have these amazing thoughts connected to fear, we forget them. They're not usable. So they were kept and essentially kept in a place, a space. And I know that's kind of out there, but this is me talking. So, okay. So, sharing screen again. Divine lock and key. And when I say the potential of being released until man, woman, and child could see. So it's not just the man, it's the inner child, it's the heart. We had to see them from this inner place of coherence. Otherwise, we didn't see the value. We wouldn't have, so that's part of it. And so that they could see the error of their ways. Now, this is not in judgment or shame. This is a reference to error 404 not found. Like, it's not there anymore. So they could see that that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, that's not where we're headed, right? And this is all a big play on words. So I already said the vibrational encoding didn't match and it couldn't pull it out. I'm being guided to talk a little bit about why it's important to be consistent and to consistently meditate every day and be in a place of heartfelt frequency so that that becomes a more common denominator than being in a fear-based frequency. Eventually, the higher frequency of love and bliss and peace can then dissolve the lower frequencies of fear. But if the frequency of fear is all of the time, and so to speak, and the frequency of love or bliss is once a week, then which one is going to stick? So these were kept under safety, if you will. Safe key, ping. So sonar, the ping, it bounced back. Safekeeping and safe coding. Guys, this also has to do with security and internet and monetary systems. So there is a monetary system. This also has to do with the world of crypto and the world of, because that energy has shifted around that as well, because a lot of that was used for nefarious purposes. If we looked, we could go with that, or we could go with this. This is our higher potential, and we are the ones that are creating this new world. So we are bringing it in, and now it's ready. So it's not going to get hacked from those other things, right? And many have accessed this potentiality again, for these are yours. These are our thoughts that we, as future versions of us, right, are now sending back to us in time, or we're having now, there is no time, or literally it's no future version of us, we're having it right now, or our ancestors are sharing it with us through this portal. So many different versions here. These thoughts are combinations of expectations and frequencies. That's not all they are, but that's one part of them that gave birth to entire civilizations, and they have been percolating, if you will. So I write that out, and it's like we have expectations, there's frequencies that have been given birth to, it gave birth to thoughts, gave birth to our civilization, give birth to the computer. So I talked about this, I don't know if I finished it, but we have a thought, it is out there, it isn't inside of us, but it's birthed from inside of us. But then which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? So we could play with that. Just really fun to play with. So they've been percolating. All right, so let's see if I get this right. Before I go on to that, I just wanted to share percolating. Before I forget, dime talks about mint. It's a mint government. So we could go with this, we could go with that, because I talked earlier about turning on a dime. It's immediate change, but it also represents a minted value system. And we could go with that and say, well, yeah, but the symbols that are on our American money are full of domination and control. And that would be true. But what we're referring to in this, we, my guides team, me, our connectedness through our higher self, is referring to a new value system, which is this. And the dime, before it was labeled, this is really interesting and I think really fun. All of this is fun for me. So I'm going to hit share screen. If I go on to Wikipedia and I look up dime, it's a 10 cent. I already talked about what the 10 represented for me, but it also represents one. It's one dime. So it talks about an olive branch, a torch, and an oak branch, which for me, that's tree, right? It remains 10th part. So where is it? D, which is big for me. That's a whole other video. D is a harmonic. It's represents, so right here, we have the olive branch, the torch, and the oak branch. So it's peace. Let me hit pause, share. So if I hit pause, share. So I stopped sharing just for a second, but it's liberty, peace, and strength. There's a lot of juice on the dime, but I just wanted to kind of talk about that because, well, I already talked about it. So that's essentially what we're showing, is that we're turning this into the true peace and liberty, and also the tree. So the oak tree and the olive branch also are very representative of roots and other energies that this is talking about. Okay. So almost done. So they were kept under, so there were safety codes that were set up so that these new programs that are being created couldn't be hacked, couldn't be changed. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Okay. So I'm back to screen sharing. So they were percolating. So it was moving through slowly going through a substance. So it wasn't fast, like stopping on a dime. It was slowly being birthed, right? Or no, the civilizations are birthed, but we're in that process. This energy has been slowly there. Now we're able to move through it faster. Masquerading is no longer part of this equation. Play on words. So when we think of a masquerade, wearing a mask and dancing around, pretending to be something that we're not, is no longer part of this equation. There's also a huge play on words about this. So So, oh, so basically we're looking at masquerade. We're not going to help hide this anymore. We're not going to hide behind our masks, and we're not going to help others hide behind their masks. So it's no longer part of this equation. Equation is it's no longer adding up. It's no longer part of our mathematical composition of value. I'm seeing that these thoughts and I'm being guided to share, when I put play on words, I will literally hear play on words sometimes. Or as I'm writing this down, I will hear definitions and things come through just to share with you guys in case you guys do this kind of writing too. I am seeing that these thoughts and thoughts of realities were hidden in this void space and encapsulated. I talked about this a little bit. They weren't able to gain full creation. I talk about quarried. Quarried comes up a lot, and it has to do with crypto. Well, many different things. It also talks about things in the earth as well, literally. And as we are in that space now, brothers and sisters, for as we allow ourselves to expand and break on through to the other side of the coin, break through this void space equivalent, that's a play on words. It's equivalent. So we're breaking through as equals. That I'm not going to break that down too much. We allow ourselves to create that which is equal to our value, our thoughts, our interactions with source, infinitely and intimately. There's not this separation anymore. We're becoming one with it, right? There's not a mask or a veil that separates us from that anymore. I mean, from one perspective, we've still got a little bit of that, but I'm just saying it's more available to us, where we know it intimately and we're able to touch it essentially. This allows us to calibrate and create an equilibrium. I was seeing Harry Potter, and there's a scene in the movie where he scries and he pulls the memory out of his head and puts it in, and then follows that through, and it's through the wand. And I was hearing that these thoughts are then plucked. But when I say plucked, I was seeing like you pluck a chord on a guitar. I was also seeing feathers, which represents DNA. And I was seeing pulling them through like threads. I should put that, pulling, like we're pulling it out. Threads. And then they stick. So I was seeing like they stick because we're matching them. It's the law of attraction from one perspective. And we have enough holding patterns to attract them to us. And I already talked about this. It's coherence, consistency. I am seeing this as outside of us. So those are the thoughts that are outside of us, but they're also inside because we created them, right? And we're bringing them back to us. And then we add to them. And this gives a whole new picture to thoughts become things, because then we create things out of thoughts, right? For they are a thing, if you will, floating in the ethers. And I'm not sure if I spelled that right. If it's ethers or aethers, I always get confused on that one. The air, the others, the hairs, the airs, outside of time, so to speak. So it's all connected through our ancestors, through our heritage, through the hairs on our head, through the air that we breathe. The decisive units of co-creation. So that's a big play on words, but units are value, also what we measure something by. We're making the decision to co-create. We're making this, we're choosing this. Creating matter formation. It's merely a matter of thought perspective. So it's how we perceive these thoughts that we then make them into something. We could have a thought that may be something that's not very good from one perspective, but then we say, no, I'm going to choose to change that. I'm going to flip it and reverse it. I'm going to dissolve that and make it into something else. And that is literally a mirror, a reflection of where we're at vibrationally, or who we are in that moment when we see the thought. Am I being fearful, Or am I being in a place of, am I seeing this thought, hearing this thought from a place of love? You could go with this and you could go with that. This is your choice. This is your decision. It's a dance, if you will. And the most expansive thoughts often come with the most responsibility and the ability to respond. So, yeah, some of us have these big thoughts, and it takes the ability to bring them into action. So that's part of the reason now is the time that these are coming through. We have the access. We're accessing them to the enormity of the energy behind the projectivity. So the energy that we are using to project these continued thoughts, because we're bringing them to us and then we're creating matter from these thoughts, and this is just all plays on words. We need energy to do this. So we can't just be in that other realm where we're just giving up. We need energy to produce, right? Remember to play with your words, for as you allow them to form in your mind's eye, so we see them sometimes, you bring into your awareness all that you hold within your mind's eye. So it's like I'm allowing them to form, and it's connecting to all this other information that's held within that all-seeing eye with source, right? Not the eye of Saruman. That's a different kind of eye. And so these subjects require a certain amount of objectivity when discussing them. And I'm seeing just play with that even. So objectivity around these subjects is key. So we have to look at them through different angles. And I'm being guided to talk about the alethiometer that I always talk about from Golden Compass. And then back to the device. Where are we seeing this from? Are we in our plumb line? Are we in our center when we look at this? Or are we stuck on one side? Are we in that frequency and vibration? Or are we in this frequency and vibration? Many of the words that we are using are meant to be played with. For you use these linguistics, these languages, as you play with the vocabulary. You open up an entirely new subset for reference points. Okay. All right, so here's subset. In mathematics, a set is a subset. An A is a subset of B if all elements A are also elements of B. Well, that comes back to our universal oneness, right? But it's also a container. It's a subset. I love this. This is it. Bubbles, right? I'm all about the bubbles. So here we have bubble B and bubble A, and A is held within bubble B. So it defines a partial order. Ooh, I like that. Ooh, more bubbles. I love that. It's a lattice. It can be used for many different operations. So when I say this, it's a subset for reference points. So we now know where we are within this other part of the whole. But there's so much more we could play with that. By the way, this can also be utilized for computer science and crypto. An entirely new subset of dominions, if you will. So there's now these new places, these new subsets that have been created that we have access to. An entirely new subset of frequencies and activations then spill forward or spill forth from your interpretation. So when we acknowledge or from our interpretation, we then change and we spill it out, spell it out. And we bring it forward, right? We bring it out in front of us, referring back to that movie. Then spill forward or spill forth from your interpretation of these words. For the entanglement in which the English language has experienced also is in a place of revamping, if you will. So we all know that our English language has been really messed with. And a lot of the words we use hold very low frequencies, attachments, and baggage associated with them. And we are flipping it and reversing it, right? It's entanglement. It's the spooky, right? That connection to everything. And it's being in a place of revamping. So I played with that because I could go with this and I could go with that. So we could say that the life has been sucked out of it by the vampires. But that is being played out in the false sense of security, in the triple layer dimension. And I liked using the word triple layer dimension because if you think of it as 3 layers, it's not the same thing as 3D, but that's kind of how I'm seeing it. That's a domain. So now we're in a completely different domain. So that's done, right? Right. False sense of security. So that is being played out in this false sense of security. We could go with so many things on that. I'm not really worried about that. I'm not worried about any of this, but oftentimes we have this false sense of security. So we hang on to old words, old habit patterns, because if we know what it is, it gives us this idea that we're secure. But in reality, in the real reality, which isn't just a triple layer dimension, it's infinite, we may not know what the words really are holding in value until we interpret them from a different dominion. I'm seeing certain languages or words as being trapped in that dimension. So they got stuck because they were used for lower structure representations. And we're moving them out now. We're expanding on the living light language. Yet we choose not to go into that particular scope field. So we're not going to go there. We've already been there, done that in this conversation. For that mapping field is in self-destruction, if you will. Yet this is also a play on words. It is in the process of self-destructing the sense of self in the ego of linear projection, if you will. So essentially it's pulling itself apart. It's taking care of itself. It's self-destructing. And we're seeing that, aren't we? Playing out. And mapping field, when I talk about a mapping field is used to create our geography, where we are. We mapping into something. I've written this many times before, but I'll do that again. It's like we ping off of it and then we know where we are located. We know where we are going. We know where we have been, but that's all gone. That's all falling apart. So we're going to go into out of linear projection, right? Out of the ego. And we're going to map into a higher quality of resonance, a higher quality of sound harmonics. And when I say sound harmonics, they're sound. They're solid. They're not solid, but they have a better foundation. They're sound, right? They're secure. That's the true security, is in the higher sound. As you allow the structure to unfold within this linguistically, I don't know if it's linguistical. I don't think that's a real word, but play on words. It creates an activation set of quantum mechanics. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. The mechanisms, the mechanics, the mechanical voice oscillations that you provide, not just me, we, play with these subsets of energy frequency. So we're playing with the language. It's alive. I am literally seeing the alpha, beta stringing together like lights, string theory, a string of A to Z, the alphabet, all those letters on a string. Flick them, right? Scrabble them up and they all fall apart. But then we're piecing them back together and I'm hearing upside down, right? Or inside out, upside down, inside out. We're relocating them. Also, I feel like we need to go into, okay, I feel like we really need to go into string theory for a moment here. So, wow, I know this is long, you guys, but I don't want to stop and start number 2. So I'm just going to keep going. So we're stringing them together like lights. So if you picture an alphabet, I mean, think about where the name alphabet even came from. So I guess we should start with that, right? Let's go there. Alphabet word origin. I love to play with the origin of these words. So, came from the Greek language. I don't know if that's going to give me what I'm looking for. Hebrew alphabet. Letters of a language arranged in a customary order. I guess that's not really what I'm looking for. I guess if we go into alphabet, because if you're watching this, you might go, I don't know what that even represents. Talks about the origin based on Wikipedia of our language, which is not accurate because it's far before this. But I love how this is the alphabet for the Egyptian language. Like, isn't that so cool? We all know what hieroglyphs are, but we tend to think A through Z. I mean, it's just so cool. So I'm surprised that I encourage you guys to just look up the history of the alphabet. But I also want to word origin. So if we look up alpha, right, we think of alpha. So I could go so many different places. I guess I don't need to go into this, but alpha and beta. So we're talking about the beginning and the end, kind of. Okay, but let's look at string theory. It's so pretty. So it's stringing together like lights. If you haven't ever looked it up, it's really cool. So this is allowing us to play with this structure like this. This is our string theory picture. I just think that's so pretty. So it's talking about physics and quantum mechanics and mass and charge, and they're saying it's strings. I mean, that's awesome. The dimension of a mathematical space is informally defined as the minimum number of coordinates needed to specify any point within it. So we're going out there, in case you didn't notice. So I encourage you to look that up. It's just fun. I read a book when I was younger. I didn't read it. I mostly just thumbed through and picked out a few pages that I really liked. And then I went, okay, that's over my head. This allows you to play with the structure in such a way that it activates a deeper depository. So I went and talked about, I think of a depository as a bank. So it activates a deeper place to put all of this, to hold it. We go deeper, right? A bank. This, remember, everything that I share, as above, so below, as within, so without, also has to do with our financial system, our economic, our social, our, and it's political, all of it. To put into, to place into something, to hold on to, in order to add value to and to organize, to draw from when needed. So we allow these currencies to flow through us. We then reactivate lost potentials. So I talked about this earlier, that were once ensnared from one perspective. So captured or stuck, right? In a lower energy soup. We could call it or label it a dimension, but let's just call it energy soup. Yet it was also put on hold or held within the deepest reverence. So it was honor. We were honoring and holding it with reverence. So it wasn't ready. And we're in doing that, we valued it rather than just throwing it out there to see if it would stick. And basically that's it. What you had with the old energy soup was that's it. We're done. There is no more, right? That's all you get. All that was held was in this space. I put seeing the void space, essentially all was held until those of us that are holding a higher resonance. Hello people watching this video. Intervals of resonance, residency, resident key. So we took up residency in this domain and we hold the key because this is our home, what we're creating in this new energy in a non-ego way. So I wanted to share, we all have ego. It's there, okay? But if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, it doesn't mean that we're going to create an entire planet and call it ego, right? The guy's ego. Anyways, so some of us have, but that's not what we're doing. We want to integrate that, right? We can do, now we hold this consistently and coherently, and we pick up on those thoughts, and we're able to use the key to key in the codes to create this new value system. So for those of you programmers out there, for those of you workers in computers, that's what you're doing. Light workers in the computer realm, artificial intelligence realm, monetary realm, okay? So we allow you, or you allow we. Oh, I didn't put marquee. So we're putting these thoughts or patterns. We can see them now. They're being reflected back to us, and they're being highlighted. And we're seeing certain words, and we're going, whoa, okay. And I can't allow you, or you allow we. Did I start recording again? I think I did. Yes, okay. For many different angles to tap into these letter geometries. These letter geometries coerce a deeper path, a course. So they bring them up. It's like, come on, you can do it. It's like the breadcrumbs, right? It's coercing. It's bringing you into a deeper path. Another course, okay? When you go back and forth between each other, you create a concourse for discourse. By the way, this has to do with the brain. This has to do with the gray matter in the brain. And if you think of creating a pattern, a habit pattern over and over again, it creates a maybe it's concord. Concourse, concord. Anyways, it's a track, essentially, that you're then able to communicate with spirit in a different way. And it allows you to interchange, and each other, by the way, in a fluid-like state and space in order to access this divine fine points of intersecting nodes. These divine nodes and geometries then spill forth into your letter. I'd usually take a break here, but I'm going to keep going because I'm going to run out of time. Okay, I love this. So these divine nodes, okay, and geometries, which we all know what geometry is, right? Shape, mathematics, letters and words and shapes and angles, then spill forth into your letter. Now, if you look up letter, it's a written message conveyed from one person to another through a medium. Now, this isn't the only thing that letters, I really wanted to kind of learn about where the word came from, because a letter is also one, we say A is a letter. So A is a letter, or alpha is the beginning, right? So it's through a medium. Now, when I'm sharing this with you guys in this letter, my medium is my language, it's my body, it's the skin suit that we're all in, it's our technology, but it's also the around, the air is a medium in which we connect into. It's the fabric that we are weaving through. It's the medium of choice. The medium of choice. We are choosing to live in this medium and communicate this way as mediums, right? As, yeah. So I could go on and on. I could do a complete video just on the word letter. And it's fine points. So it's different points. It's fine. It's like all of this one sentence I could break down probably for a half hour. And we intersect, and nodes hold information. So I like to play with the word nodes a lot. Nodes and notes, they're so close, because a node, and I'm going to computer science because such great definition. Here's our bubbles, right? Everything's connected. This is a tree, right? I talked earlier about going from 10, a dime. We've stopped on a dime and we've gone above and beyond. Is a basic unit of data structure, of a data structure, such as a linked list or tree data structure. Nodes contain data and also may link to other nodes. Links between nodes are often implemented pointers, and I said fine point. So in computer science, a pointer is an object in many programming languages that stores a memory address, a memory address, a domain. This can be that of another value located in computer memory, or in some cases, that of memory mapped computer hardware. So going into nodes and trees, there's actually a child node. Remember earlier I said man, woman, and child. A child node is a node extending from another node. For example, a computer, oh boy, so funny, degrees, edge. So a lot of the times when I write this out, it's like I'm writing out computer science. But where does the computer science language come from, right? Our hieroglyphics, our hieroglyphs. Speaking in hieroglyphics formation. So we're creating this. We're spilling forth. We are the intersecting nodes. We are the child between the mother and the father. We are fine points, right? We're pointing to, in order to find information, right? Anyways, it's showing us these divine ways to connect with our own network. A vocabulary sequencing, an order of communication. I briefly went into DNA. If you look up DNA, it's got letters associated with it, right? This also has to do with computer programming, computer science, string theory, quantum physics, our DNA, and crypto, all of it. So where do we want to go with it? All forms of language information. For there are many different subsets in which we exchange these particles of information and weave them together. We're weaving together all of it. Okay. DNA and the language of DNA is not separate from us, nor is it separate from the things that we create in essence. So that you may find a deeper definition, play on words, within these subsets of quandaries and mathem citations. Quantification, mathematics, pontification created mathemication. So definition, a deeper definition. What does it mean? What's the container that it's held within? What are the defining? We're going to deepen that. We're going to create more value to it, and it's going to become a deeper definition than it once was. Word and letter information mixologist. That's what I'm going to call myself from now on. Many of you are that too. The label that I'm going to define myself as. No, I'm going to go beyond that. We all are. And in doing this, we rectify many things that have been lost in the soup, if you will. We pull them out as a shiny new now, for they have not been accessed in this way. They are purified, if you will. Look up the word purify, phi, right? The golden ratio. We're bringing them back into a golden ratio. They are the pure frequencies of vocabulary, of sound, of mathematics, that which has yet to be falsified. So it's not fake. It's not a masquerade, right? We're bringing it through in its purest form. When we play in this way, through this medium. So we will continue to play with this linguistical display of mathematical encodement. I don't know if that's really a word. Encasement. For as you share the messages in this way, others may not understand fully what is on display. So others might read this or not, and they're not going to understand it fully. They might not understand what's being shown in front of them. And on the flip side, they may not understand what is, like, what is this? And this is a message to you guys too, if you've made it this far in this video. Can't believe it. It's a message to, not everybody's going to understand what it is that you're showing. They may not understand life, and that's okay. You are a marquee that lights up certain words. We all do this. We're all key carriers, right? My name just happens to be Carrie. Mark Carey. You take the letters and put them up on the board. What does a board do? It holds value. It's a scoreboard. It shows an order. It lights it up and brings emphasis on them. Let us play with this marquee light, so to speak, for it has been turned off by many. Let us play with this. The marquee light, so to speak, has been turned off for many. Many just aren't going to see it at all. They're over there. That's okay. And many are using old and recycling. That's a play on words. So recycling. They're recycling the same ink over and over again. They're recycling the old nodes. So the data, it's old definitions, it's old data. A node type is defined by how it communicates with other nodes. They're using their old form of communication that isn't working anymore. Or it's working, but it's not working in its highest efficiency. This is a way to play, right? And these old notes and nodes have lost their charm. So again, I put a spell on you. When the English language from that perspective was utilized to put a spell on us. You know, to use certain words, to harness a certain frequency, to harness a certain vibration, and it created a charm. We were under the spell, right? We were, what do they call it when you're glamored? Many people were glamored. They were glamored, like the vampires use, revamping this old language. They glamour them so people see something that isn't real, meaning they think something is one way. And of course, this makes me think of, you know, Hollywood and all of that we see as glamorous. False. I always like to use that movie Bedazzled. You guys ever watched the movie Bedazzled? It's kind of a fun it's an old movie with Elizabeth Hurley. And anyways, it's based on an even older movie from the 50s, but you know, everything looks glamorous and beautiful until you find out, oh, they sold their soul for that glamour. So it's lost its charm. It's not working on us anymore. But this also has to do with programming, you guys. So in the computer world, charm has to do with computer programming. They have lost their ability to hold the spell, which is a new gift to the energies coming in. It's like, oh, this is awesome. It gives the new energies the opportunity, because these energies are our sounds, right? They're attuning to anchor into the landmines. So this also has to do with crypto. I keep bringing this up because our value system is changing, and it was based on an old system, and that system is going down. So the light workers are coming in and they're weaving what they can save and salvage together with the new so that it can be utilized for a stronger foundation. I think landmines has something to do with, like, I think they mine for crypto, but this also has to do with the land of the mind. So they're anchoring realities and anchor points into the mind of all of us, right? And you. So all the speak in this way are providing this accessibility. For this is a fluidity. I'm hearing a fluocular, I'm seeing the flu, ocular vocabulary, and inoculation. So we're inoculating people from the old spell, right? It allows you to play with the currency. Oh, and it allows us to see. So sometimes these words will, the way that we write this or the way that we speak with this type of language, we'll see a certain pattern, and it literally will break the spell. Or we see a certain pattern and it causes us to activate our pineal gland, which is kind of cool. Our vision, our vision, our third eye, our 3D, we're getting out of that. We're going into our true third eye. It allows you to play with the currency in such a way that you can divinate that which is concurrently binding itself in the reality activation grid. So we get to see the future. We get to see, divinate the runes. We use the stones. This also means playing with our new value system. So we can play with the value system in such a way that we can kind of see a language that's unfolding, that's helping us to differentiate between different value sets. Computer lingo. But let us play more with these words and this vocabulary. For the words and subsets that you are linguistically tapping into, taproot allows you to coin, count essentially, quintessentially, mint essentially, peel back the layers of geometric interfaces that interlace and interphase lock, commingling into the subdivision of quantum intuition. I feel like I need to just do a separate video on that paragraph alone. But I'll keep it simple. Something going on with Taproot, something going on with the new crypto system. Uh, Disclaimer, I don't know much about crypto. I don't know much about okay, I know very, like, almost nothing about crypto and computer programming and all of this. I'm just sharing what's coming through. So what I'm sharing this as a disclaimer that I am not suggesting that you should go invest in crypto. But what I am saying is that I see a uh, connection to all of this. Again, this is economic, social, political, emotional, human, earth, physical, all of it. So you could play with this and take it into any, the energy, and say, okay, so Taproot allows you to coin, count essentially. So it's coin essentially, count essentially. It's going to allow us to to count things uh, that weren't counted before, essentially. Quintessentially, mint essentially, and create. So we mint something, right? We make it a value. So maybe we're tapping into the root that allows us to play with this new version of economics. So some people are going to do that, and they'll be able to see the patterns. I'm not there yet. I might be in this other realm, but I'm just sharing that that's some people's gifts. They're just going to be like, oh yeah, I see the pattern. Da, 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 da. Here we go. And by playing with it in that way and not coming from an ego, I need money, I need something else to give me value in order to give that value, but just by playing, it's going to change the way the system works from the roots up. We're tapping into the truth of the root. And then we can see the layers of geometric interfaces. So I am going to do another video on that. And even that little paragraph is a limiting view of what we are already viewing. So this is just like one domain within a domain, within a domain, within a domain. You can attribute this to, I'm hearing a tributary, a treyu, a tree. So tree of life, the true tree of life, not the fake one, or the old one, or the old system. Atreyu, of course, is from Never-Ending Story. Tributary, so we can attribute this to a galactic up-leveling, if you will. This is a galactic way of, but it's our galactic, right? It's our galaxy. It's like we're expanding out into multiple domains, not just this domain. Oh, I guess I do need to. So I'm almost done. I might need to do 2 videos. So I'm going to call it here, and I'm going to start. Do I really need to do any more of this? Let me I think I'm like almost at 2 hours. So maybe longer. So crow means a lot of different things. That was coming from the outside. I was hearing the crows, and so I included that in this particular language interaction. As you allow yourself to commingle in this network, you exchange viable information that allows you to create weave certain reference points into your understanding, into your nature, into your understanding of nature. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Our nature changes and how we experience things, our understanding of how we experience things changes, and we get more points of reference to help us map into our new reality. We are weaving codes in every given minute, so to speak. We are weaving codes during every interaction in which you allow these code-dependent singular node networks then light up the refractory board. Okay, so I could just, maybe I should do part 2. So I think I'm going to go into part 2 because I talk a lot about unwinding, which has to do with the I mention it. It has to do with the DNA. Oh, I wonder if DA was a Freudian slip there. So I'm going to stop share, and I guess I'm going to do part 2. So essentially, there's a lot in this one blog post. And if you've made it this far, wow, I'm going to do part 2 when I can. If you're a computer person, you might read this, literally read into this in a completely different interpretation than if you work with DNA or if you are a chemistry teacher or student, or if you're a mathematician, or if you really enjoy, if you're a nutritionist, whatever your role is as you read these types of writings, not just from me, but just in general, looking at language in a different way will change the interaction with this living light language that we're accessing. So it's all meant to be played with. In love and light, guys, thank you so much. Whew, to be continued. Namaste.